All right, great. Thank you so much for staying with us. Hey, Juliana, can you bring it down just a tad, like halfway, so we can see the audience a little bit? Thank you. Okay, so I am thrilled to have Lisa here with us today. What I know about Lisa is that she was an OBGYN and then became a faculty member at Emory School of Medicine and now is let's see if I got the right title here, the medical director, long title, medical director of the Center for Biomedical Research at the Population Council. And you can tell us exactly what that is. So what I've been doing with our guests is have them tell a little bit about what they do, and then whatever you want to say as you watch the play and you finish watching the play, what came to mind that you thought, I want to share this with audience members? So first a little bit about yourself, about what you do, what your background is.
So thank you so much for having me. So I'm Lisa Haddad. I guess starting way back, I am an OBGYN. I came to Emory about a little more than a decade ago for a fellowship in family planning, and I stayed on as faculty there, where I was at Emory for about 12 years. I guess it was longer than 10 years ago. And then I changed my position about 2 years ago to become medical director at Population Council, which is based out of New York. The organization itself develops new technologies as well as works globally to increase choice and access to reproductive health products for women, girls, and men globally. We are developing different contraceptive methods for men and women, and products for HIV prevention, prevention of STIs, combined products, as well as increased access to safe reproductive health care. We develop Mifeprex, which is the medical abortion pill, and have done work globally to increase access to safe abortion. Prior to going over to Pop Council, I was involved with both clinical work and research related to safe reproductive health care throughout the country as well as specifically in the States. So I both was a provider at through my work as an OBGYN as well as several clinics throughout Georgia, as well as a researcher where I was doing work at the intersection of HIV and contraception, as well as other looking at safe contraceptive services for women with all different issues, and then specifically looking at access barriers to safe reproductive health care. So I have done work in terms of barriers to access to safe abortion care in Georgia, and then also just an advocate for those issues.
You know a lot.
I've had different things that I've done. So in terms of how I felt watching the show or what struck me, I guess I'm sure plenty of people here probably felt incredibly emotional watching all of this. I can think back to the first time I went to a march. I was still in high school, and just the ongoing fight after fight after fight, and the fact that we're still here and people are still fighting, and the fact that at the end we still, the final words were that, Roe is still, the law, and knowing that ending may need to change in the next, week or two.
I know, we're trying to call the playwright this week and say, so if this happens on Wednesday, how do we end the play?
And so it's, I think I was surprised by how I was holding back so much emotion during this, because the stories are not new.
Right.
Especially the stories of the individuals as they're going there and they're battling with their own choices and trying to make their own decisions, which, I think there's so much within me that it matters so much that people have that choice, and yet I see it slowly being taken away. And that, I think, was more strikingly penetrating than I thought it would be.
Yeah, you're telling this story now where you can respond to it now as opposed to in the past, right now,
And it resonates because if it was a year ago, and if it were 2 years ago when you were supposed to put it on, I don't think anybody here would be like, Roe is going to get overturned. I mean, you hear it over and over again. It would never happen.
Yeah.
And yet, we're here now, and we have to face the reality of what is it going to mean for our neighbors, our friends, our family.
So talk about that a little bit. Like what is it now here in Georgia, and what will it mean? Assuming that some level, it gets overturned on some level, whether it's completely overturned, whether it's just emaciated, you know.
So, yeah, I can't say what exactly will happen. I think we have things, you know, there are, you know, there's enough to have an idea of what may happen. And I think if Roe gets overturned, most likely within a short period of time after the Roe gets overturned, House Bill 481 on the heartbeat, and will the injunction will be lifted. And so what will that mean? So immediately when that happens, and it's not going to happen the day,
Right.
but probably within a month.
Yeah.
There will be reduced access to any sort of abortion care and beyond 6 weeks. But the House bill doesn't end there. So it extends beyond, and there's additional wording within the law about personhood. And
What does it say about personhood in the
so
law?
essentially,
And look, before you go to that, so I need to understand, so you are a plaintiff in this bill, so I need to understand how the bill is sister song versus Kemp, right? There are a number of
There are
plaintiffs,
multiple.
and how are you involved as a plaintiff?
so there are several organizations that are plaintiffs, and then there are also 3 OBGYNs that are plaintiffs. And so I'm one of the OBGYNs. And I had been engaged with the ACLU previously on another law that was brought in Georgia that was a 20-week ban. And that, unfortunately, also, there was an injunction for many years, and then that unfortunately went into effect as well.
So that one is in effect now,
Yes.
the 20-week ban.
It is, but it's 20 weeks post-fertilization. That is in effect in Georgia. Post-fertilization. So that's for 22 weeks gestation.
So, so continue on about, so now
So-
you're a plaintiff, and so what happens now? So that bill,
So if that bill goes into effect, what is the state of Georgia right now? We know maternal mortality is strikingly high in Georgia. We know there's huge disparities in care. We know that that is only going to increase. And abortion provision in Georgia is not, Atlanta is a hub where we've been fortunate to have access to care. People come from all over. I mean, they come from Tennessee, North Carolina, Alabama, Florida to get care here. And there are not that many places to get care. There are individual independent clinics.
Right.
These clinics will have a challenging time staying open, just based on the nature of the number of individuals who can obtain access to care. So 6 days is hard. So right now, you have a 24-hour waiting period.
that exists now, right
That is
now?
now.
Okay.
And you have to, give people a script, which is a right to know, and talk about the risks of carrying pregnancy to term and several things that are meant to inform people of things that aren't always true.
Right.
And there are new laws every day that are being put into place that are going to restrict access to more. So then now you have a law that's saying that before somebody may even know they're pregnant, they can no longer have an abortion. Let's say you even know that you're pregnant when you miss your period right away. Getting in, getting the money, getting everything together in order to get an appointment in a clinic, if the clinics stay open in order to gain access to care, is going to be important. So fortunately, we know that medication abortion is increasingly available and safe. And so people will go through other means in order to obtain medication abortion. For those people who have the health literacy, the capability, the savviness in order to access the medication abortion. Or they'll have the ability to leave the state. And many people do leave the state. I mean, many people will do anything in order to obtain an abortion. And, social capital is incredibly important. So most of the people who have abortions not most, a lot of the people who have abortions have other things going on in their life that make their life challenging, whether it be financial, whether it be having several children already and figuring out how to get to a clinic that's out of state, and all of those additional barriers. There's going to need to be a network of people that support them. And unfortunately, we don't know where the law's going to go. I mean, the next stage in certain states, if somebody helps somebody obtain an
Right, it
abortion,
should be
then you could be conspiracy.
Right, yeah.
You know, I mean, so we don't know how far it can go, but I think in the immediate future, it's still going to be not great. I'm hoping that people will challenge the law. But I think with the way the court system looks right now, and in Georgia, and the Georgia Supreme Court, and then the U.S. Supreme Court, I think it's going to be really challenging to get any sort of challenge the new law through.
So with the bill, if the injunction is lifted, so the law goes into effect, but then do you get passed on to the Supreme Court at that point? Is that the case? No, it's just it goes into effect.
So right now, the injunction would be lifted by the court, and we could re-challenge, and it could go ultimately with the Supreme Court, but I guess, you know, the question is, will there be enough of a favorable court system in order to even get to that level? I mean, can you, without Roe as the precedent, will the case have enough to challenge the law? And I think there's questions around the idea of personhood. So within the law right now, individuals can claim a pregnancy as a dependent. And so, you know, there is this language written into the law to give the rights to the fetus. And in that case, it can extend even further. So it has a very dangerous precedent. And while it, in theory, based on the fact and what the state has argued is, well, it's a 6-week ban. We're not going to push that personhood issue any further. But it could. So it could push it into when is personhood defined? Is it that 6 weeks? Is it if you give a medication to somebody who's pregnant and you don't know how, could you be prosecuted? So it could change how it's sexual care or even reproductive, anybody of reproductive age. You know, many people may be hesitant to care for. We don't know how far people are gonna end up feeling fear. Whether or not people are prosecuted doesn't mean that people won't change practice. So we know from prior laws that people change practice in fear of litigation, even if there's never been a case for somebody's litigated. So I think that there is this extension of what could happen, and I hope it doesn't go down that way. But you know, there's so much we don't know.
There was Dabney Evans was here yesterday, and she was talking to me about that there's a strategy I hadn't heard, that there's a possibility that somebody will challenge, a pregnant woman will challenge, and there'll be a group of people who ask to be a protected class as pregnant women, and under the 14th Amendment, ask to be a protected class. And I thought that's a great strategy, but you don't think that'll work?
I don't know. I mean, I think that people are going to hopefully try new ways, and I think Dabney's, you know, I fully support that we try to figure out ways to protect the rights of women. And right now, we know what's happened in Texas, that overall the number of abortion cases have not substantially decreased. But there's been a lot of resources that have been put into trying to help people gain access to care. And over time, those resources may handle. I mean, if it becomes much more broadly restricted. So I don't know. I hope that there will be ways that we can protect the ability to provide safe and effective health care. It's evidence-based medicine of what is safer. I mean, it's safer to carry, it's safer to have an abortion than carry a pregnancy to term.
For sure.
Without a question.
Yeah.
And so it feels wrong that we're even having this discussion.
Other questions that some people out there, do you have anything they want to ask or
know how that might affect contraceptives and Plan B and all
So
that?
that's a great question. So I don't think we know yet, and I think it depends on what specific things end up going to affect. So Plan B is, you know, technically how it works in most cases, it delays ovulation. And so you shouldn't have a actual fertilization. So in theory, the Plan B should not be in any way construed as having an abortion. That being said, you don't know to what degree people may misunderstand science and therefore misallocate that this is actually a pregnancy, or it could be a pregnancy that's being prevented, and so therefore you're inhibiting a life. I mean, you don't know how far people are going to take it, right? And then you have things like certain forms of contraception, like intrauterine devices, the IUDs. Well, people may argue that that could disrupt a pregnancy, and so that shouldn't go into place until you prove for a fact that somebody isn't pregnant, therefore delaying contraceptive care and therefore putting them at further risk for pregnancy. And so I think that it can keep going to the point where it can restrict access to contraception, and it will in many places, because I think people will become afraid of providing contraception if there is this potential risk. Whether or not that risk is real, I don't know, but it's fear that will often drive changes in practice. And so I hope that doesn't happen. And so, you know, one of the things that we're working on right now is expanding contraceptive options and choice. So even when there are contraceptives out there, over 40% of all pregnancies are unplanned. So that's contraceptive failures, because nothing's perfect. Or it's people not really being able to find a method that works for them or have access to contraception. So access is going to get harder, especially in more restricted areas. And we've seen that in multiple countries, that the number of unintended pregnancies tend to mirror the legislative aspect in terms of abortion care. Access and access. So reduced access to abortion, reduced access to contraception, that is often together. So you put that together and you get an increase in, you know, the number of unplanned pregnancies. And so that's only going to increase. So our hopes are that we can increase options to meet the needs of more people. We're trying to develop male contraceptives so that, I mean, there are many men out there that want to, you know, help and share the reproductive responsibilities of the couple, as well as, you know, are actively trying to not get a woman pregnant. And condoms and vasectomy are not necessarily the only options that should be available for men. And so we're trying to develop options so that they can share the responsibility and maybe understand some of the burden and the challenges of contraception. And, you know, it's not that easy to contracept for everybody. And so I think understanding that may hopefully increase awareness of some of that. But what's striking to me is, despite the fact that the majority of Americans support Roe, there is still a change now in what we're going to have to deal with. And so I don't know whether it will extend to contraception, whether it will extend to fertility treatments, whether it will extend to safe how we practice obstetrical care. You know, what can we do? So we have somebody in front of us whose life is in danger. Well, at what point are they in enough risk of death that I can intervene? You know, how far will it go to the point where we have to prove or get at least legal counsel in order to practice what is evidence-based medicine? I'm not sure. That sounds impressive.
So what?
Sorry, I didn't mean that.
So if you're, you know, what can average people do about it? What do you think people should do if they're concerned?
I don't, you know, honestly, I think it's caring. You know, I think many of us are numb. You know I'm numb. You know, I see people out there marching and I'm tired. You know, and I think many of us are. And I think many of us are also like, well, it's not an issue for me now.
Yeah.
Until it becomes an issue. I hope it isn't an issue for my children. You know, and I hope it isn't an issue for the people that I care about. And so I don't know what we can do. I think we need to find ways to continue to fight, and whether it's giving money to support organizations that are helping to continue to fight, or whether it's speaking out ourselves, or voting, obviously, if we can change, the system in order to ensure that the individuals representing us are representing us, then maybe we'll have a chance to change things.
Yeah, I think that the most, one of the, it was actually someone from Feminist Women's Health Center who said, she said, there's no bill on the table right now, but you said you think that your voice doesn't matter, but all these state legislatures, if they get 6 emails, they're like, whoa, what's going on? That's a lot, and that was shocking to me, and that made me go, okay, well maybe I don't, maybe it's okay, maybe I should be doing this more often, because you do feel like you're shooting into the wind or whatever. She said, no, it really matters, and it really matters, even if you just say, when a bill comes up, do something for maternal health. Vote for things that will help maternal health, because your constituent, it matters to your constituents. We don't know what that's going to be, but keep that in mind. And I thought, well, that's a powerful thing to say, because they're all up for re-election. They all want to get your vote, so do what you can. So I was like, okay, I will. Even if they're a Democrat, she said, okay, I'll do that. So that was fine.
I think that's smart. I think many of us feel like our voice is being stepped on. We feel like we don't really have much to say that hasn't already been said. I think as we continue to try, that is going to become just the steps forward.
Anything else anyone else have anything you want to ask or comment on? What about the play? Did you all enjoy the play?
So can I say something?
Yeah, sure.
I'm probably about to embarrass my life, but this is actually my first play.
Oh my gosh!
Yeah, so
Yay!
I actually have an assignment. I'm in college right now, so I'm a firefighter. I'm actually in college to be a nurse. We're both actually in college to be a nurse. And so I'm taking fine arts, which is intro theater, and so we have to attend a play.
Yeah.
So it's my first play.
So I'm so honored.
Yeah, so this is a very good experience. I will say I'm almost 30. I did not know anything about Roe versus Wade until I stepped into this facility. I knew that it was about abortion, but I really had no public education about what occurred, whether it was the court or professional, personalized, whatever. I had no idea. So for me, even though I was assigned to come here, it's an eye-opener for sure. Like, just to understand the different perspectives, to understand the different perspectives morally, ethically, with being a health professional, how people are feeling in these certain situations, not knowing what is right and wrong for a patient when you have a moral, code, a standard of ethics that you follow, I'm overwhelmed with how I feel about the play. Definitely was very skeptical when I came in, didn't know exactly what I was getting into, but I'm not a theater junkie at all, but I definitely I hope to be. I mean, it's very enjoyable. I really enjoyed it, and I definitely enjoy it more than entertainment. So I just want to say y'all did a great job.
Thank you.
And I appreciate you guys answering questions.
Yeah, I mean, when I read the play, I'm a big feminist. I know a pretty lot of stuff, but I did not know most of what was in the play, and particularly about their stories. And I was embarrassed, but I thought, oh my gosh, if I'm who I am and I don't know, that means a lot of people don't know. So I was like, well, this is the time. So I'm excited that we
I think education is key. I think that from when, me growing up, it was you have to go to college, but you have to be able to get, a scholarship. Well, we can tell little girls they don't have to get a scholarship. They can go to college. They can pay for it, whatever way they have to, if they have to do it slowly. But they also have, they have a 5-year plan. They have an IUD. We can give them these options and a lot more, kids that didn't grow up with, a wealthy background or something, they can still go to college, they can still get a good career, and they don't have to, worry about having a baby, right away, wherever they come from.
I guess I just want to say thank you. I'm 18, so I'm really scared for the future, and this, I love the show, but it was one of the most terrifying things I've ever seen.
I know.
and I just think it's really important that we're talking about it, and obviously I'm emotional, but thank you.
Yeah, I mean, it's such a scary time for young women, you know, because you all are on the front lines, and we as mothers and grandmothers are, I mean, but you're our daughters, so we're on the front lines in that way. And the idea, I think that these choices can be taken away from us when we've had such a long time where we thought it wasn't possible, and now it is. And that's really scary.
But did you notice that the people who made the change happen were young? That they were closer to your age than my age. You know, that it is the loud voice of the young, you know, the young women out there, the young persons out there that really are able to change and that people will listen. So I hope that was empowering at the same time, that it isn't, you know, you don't have to sit quietly. If you're angry, you can speak out and people will listen and not ignore you just because you're young. That you can really change things. And so many of us may be tired, but maybe you have more fight in you. And I'm hopeful of that.
Yeah, it's always dependent on the next generation to carry the torch, you know, keep going. Because it's a long haul. Any kind of change is such a long haul. And there's such intersectionality between all these things, between women's rights and gay rights and civil rights and you know, all of the Me Too movement and all of the things happening beyond Black Lives Matter. You know, they're all connected to each other, and they're all connected to people trying to take away our rights in different ways. And we're relying on the young people to move the ball forward. You know, even as hard as it is, it's got to kind of happen. Yeah.
Are you aware of anything that's planned at the executive level after this year comes down? The officers
I am not personally aware that there is anything that actually is going to change at the executive level. My husband asks me about that all the time, because I think there is this feeling that, well, something can happen at the executive level to change things, and things would change if there was more assertion at a higher level. And I'm not sure. I don't know.
I would say that the Supreme Court expert here that came and talked to you said the best thing you can do is vote for Stacey Abrams. She said if Stacey were to win Georgia, he said that will have national consequences. It will empower states where they don't think it's possible, and they will believe it's possible. So that's one thing. The other thing that somebody told me is that the lieutenant governor position is very important. And I've talked to a lot of people, Leslie said, I can't say who told me this, but they said because they decide like which bills are really going to get pushed forward, like which one the governor is really going to get behind and which one they're going to kind of go. So some of the abortion laws, some of those did not get brought to the table the way they could have because the lieutenant governor was like, this is bad for business. This is bad for business. Let's not do this. Let's not do this. So who is in that position does matter. So as you go out and look at both, I mean, the Democrats are going to be lined up, but if it's Republican, at least looking at, you know, who they are and what's important to them, because that could make a difference in Georgia. So those are the two things that I know legislatively about what's going on based on what I've heard in the last people talking to me. But voting for Stacey is, you know, it would be a big change for Georgia. And Warnock too. I mean, we've got to keep Warnock in office. Don't have to opinion.
I'm so glad you don't have an opinion. I don't have one either.
So I'm first of all going to echo everything she said. Obviously, like, we're young. I mean, I'm 17, and so I missed election day by 10 days. My birthday's November 13th. I'm pissed about it. And so I just like.
But you can still lobby.
Oh,
You're 17, but you can't be a lobbyist. You can't be out there.
yeah, I actually recently went and shadowed Georgia Senator Halpern and Sonia Halpern, and so I kind of got to see it all firsthand.
Oh, wow.
The like power that different people kind of play, even in like the state legislatures. I want to go into politics, so
That's great. That's fantastic. We get young people going to politics. That's great. Young women. Woo.
And I just want to say, like, small things, even in like theaters, have a consequence outside of the theater. Like, I mean, my mom came to see this, and she went, Margaret, you're coming to see this. I'm buying you and Catherine tickets, and we're gonna go. I was like, okay, that's fine. And then, I mean, I'm blown away, but just like the way that people are gonna now have conversations, even people like me who necessarily can't vote, are still gonna go and have conversations and with people who can vote and make a difference. And that just like means the world to me because like I know I'm rambling at this point,
That's
but
right.
and it's gonna be personal, but that's fine. So I'm like terrified because I take the birth control pill for medical reasons, not even to avoid pregnancy or anything. Is not like the first goal of it, but like for medical reasons, I'm terrified of like what's gonna happen if Roe gets overturned and what people are gonna do to like contraceptive access. And so it just like means a lot on like a personal level that these conversations are being had. And so like I don't know like how I can say thank you enough for you putting this on.
Well, it's good to know, you know, it is, when you do theater, you think, well, who does this really matter to? But you're right, it's like, everything is one ripple effect at a time. Everybody has to do what you can do and whatever your sphere is. And you don't, not everybody has big impact, but everybody has some, you know, and that's all we can do is try it. And so, well, you're preaching the converted. I said, yeah, we're preaching the converted, but the converted need bucking up. They need bucking up and they need ammunition and they need to be reminded that it's important because you get tired. You get tired, you know, and young people need to know and everybody needs to know. So, I appreciate you all being here tonight and staying with us. And Lisa, thank you.